Go to Annapolis, the retired Admiral said, standing 3 feet from my mother's casket. Find the house on Chesapeake. Tell them Margaret sent you. I remember the rain more than the words. It came down sideways across the cemetery in Savannah, bending the live oaks until their branches scraped the iron fence. There were maybe 6 people there, most of them neighbors who came because they felt they should. My mother had been buried 20 minutes earlier. No eulogy longer than 4 sentences. No reception afterward. Just a preacher, a prayer, and a woman I barely recognized lowered into Georgia clay. My mom was a retired Navy nurse. 30 years of service. Not a single framed certificate in the house. She never talked about it. Growing up in Savannah, I thought she was just a woman who worked long shifts at the VA hospital and came home smelling like antiseptic and instant coffee. She drove a 15-year-old Honda. She kept a garden in the backyard that she watered at exactly 5:30 every morning, rain or shine. She clipped recipes from magazines she never cooked from and stacked them in a drawer she never opened. When she died, it was quiet. A stroke in her sleep. I found her on a Sunday morning when she didn't answer the phone for our weekly call. I drove over from my apartment in Midtown, used my spare key, and found her in bed looking like she had simply decided not to wake up. The coroner said it was fast. I don't know if that was supposed to comfort me. She had no visible wealth, no investments I knew of, no second car, no vacation home, no jewelry worth mentioning. Her will was 2 pages, typed and notarized, filed with a local attorney named Mr. Bowen who had known her for 30 years. The house went to me. A small life insurance policy split between me and my older sister Vivian. That was it. Vivian called before I had even chosen the casket. "So what are we looking at?" she asked. Not "how are you?" Not "I'm sorry." What are we looking at? There was something transactional in her voice that made my stomach turn. At the cemetery, after the preacher closed his Bible and the rain softened to a mist, I was about to walk back to my car when I noticed a man standing near the gate. He was tall, mid-70s maybe, wearing a dark overcoat with no umbrella. His posture was the kind you don't learn, you earn. He walked toward me without rushing. He didn't introduce himself by name. I only noticed the stars on the lapel pin when he extended his hand. "I served with your mother," he said. That stopped me. My mother had never mentioned serving with anyone beyond the nurses she occasionally referenced as the girls. The Admiral looked at the fresh grave, then back at me. "Go to Annapolis," he said. "There's a house on Chesapeake Avenue, number 412. Tell them Margaret sent you. They'll know what to do." He handed me a cream-colored envelope. No name on the outside, just an address written in neat blue ink and a phone number with a Maryland area code. Before I could form a single question, he nodded once and walked back through the gate into the mist. I stood there holding that envelope until my fingers went numb. I didn't tell Vivian. That evening, I went back to Mom's house. The place still smelled like lavender and Lysol. Her reading glasses sat on the kitchen counter next to a half-finished crossword. Her shoes were lined up by the back door, smallest to largest, the way she always kept them. Nothing about her life suggested secret addresses in Annapolis. I opened drawers I had never thought to open before. Utility bills, church bulletins, receipts from the grocery store going back years, organized by month. Everything ordinary, everything small. But then I found the lockbox. It was under the floorboard in her closet, beneath a stack of old quilts. I almost missed it. A gray metal box, heavy, with a combination lock. I tried her birthday. Nothing. I tried mine. Nothing. Then I tried the date she enlisted, a number I only knew because it was written on the back of an old photograph I had found years ago. The lock clicked open. Inside were documents, not personal letters, not sentimental keepsakes, financial documents, account statements from a trust company in Maryland, deposit records going back 22 years, and a passport with stamps from countries I didn't know she had visited. Germany, South Korea, Japan, the Philippines. Places where military hospitals existed, places where wounded people needed care long after the cameras left. Vivian called again that night. "Have you talked to the lawyer yet?" she asked. "Not yet." "Well, don't drag it out, I've got bills." She always had bills. Vivian had moved to Charlotte 8 years ago, chasing a boyfriend who became a husband who became an ex-husband. Since then, she had cycled through apartments, credit cards, and business ideas the way some people cycle through diets. Mom helped her more than once. quietly, without judgment. After I hung up, I looked at the envelope again. I wasn't someone who followed mysteries. I worked as a hospital administrator in Savannah. My life was spreadsheets and scheduling and making sure the numbers added up. But something about the way the Admiral spoke didn't feel dramatic. It felt like a handoff, like he was delivering something that had been waiting. I called the number the next morning. A man answered. Calm voice, professional. I told him my mother's name. There was a pause. Not a confused pause, a respectful one. Yes, he said. We've been expecting your call. My heart didn't race. It went still. He asked when I could visit. I told him I would need a few days. Take whatever time you need, he said. When you come, bring a photo ID and a copy of the death certificate. No mention of money. No mention of what was waiting. Just quiet procedure. I walked through the house again after I hung up. I looked at things differently now. The garden she watered every morning. The Honda she never replaced. The recipes she clipped but never used. My mother had lived like a woman with nothing extra. But nothing about her had ever been careless. That afternoon, Vivian texted, "Don't sign anything without me." I stared at the message for a long time. That night, I booked a ticket to Baltimore. I told no one. As the confirmation email appeared, I realized something that made me sit down on the edge of my mother's bed. She hadn't died with nothing. She had died with a plan. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I was walking into a room she had built but never shown me. I told Vivian I was meeting with Mr. Bowen to sort through paperwork. That bought me 2, maybe 3 days. She lived 4 hours away and rarely made the drive unless there was something to collect. The morning I left for the airport, she called anyway. "You're not making decisions without me," she said. "There's nothing to decide yet," I told her. "Just keep me in the loop." I said I would. I didn't. The flight to Baltimore was short. I rented a car and drove to Annapolis. The town looked the way postcards promise: brick sidewalks, sailboats in the harbor, the Naval Academy dome catching the afternoon light. Chesapeake Avenue was a residential street lined with old maples. Number 412 was a colonial-style house, white with dark green shutters, modest but well kept. I parked across the street and sat in the car for 10 minutes before I walked up and rang the bell. A woman in her 60s opened the door. She had silver hair pulled back, reading glasses perched on her head, and the kind of steady eyes that told me she had seen hard things and chosen not to be ruined by them. "Can I help you?" she asked. "Margaret sent me," I said. The woman's expression didn't change, but something behind her eyes shifted. She stepped aside. "Come in." The house smelled like pine and old books. She led me to a sitting room where a man in a cardigan was reading by the window. He stood when we entered. "This is Helen," the woman said. "I'm Claire. This is my husband, Robert." Robert shook my hand with both of his. "Your mother was a remarkable woman," he said. "You knew her?" "We all did." Claire gestured for me to sit. "Your mother established something here 20 years ago," she said, "with the help of a few others." "Established what?" Claire folded her hands. "A network. Support for military families, specifically families of service members who came home with injuries that the VA couldn't or wouldn't fully address. Long-term rehabilitation, mental health counseling, housing transitions, educational support for children." I stared at her. "My mother organized this?" "She didn't just organize it," Robert said quietly. "She funded it." Claire brought out a binder. Inside were records, not flashy spreadsheets, but handwritten ledgers, printed emails, bank statements. My mother's name appeared on every other page. She had been making monthly contributions to a trust for over 2 decades. The money came from her military pension, from careful investments, from a frugality that I had always assumed was just habit. It wasn't habit, it was strategy. "How much?" I asked. Claire looked at Robert. Robert looked at me. "The trust currently holds just over $14 million. The number didn't register. I asked him to repeat it. $14 million, he said. "Give or take." My mother drove a 15-year-old Honda. She bought her clothes at thrift stores. She heated her house with a space heater in winter to save on the gas bill. "How is that possible?" I whispered. "Time," Claire said. "Discipline. And a woman who understood that small, consistent action over decades builds something most people can't imagine." She opened another section of the binder. Lists of families who had received help. A daughter whose college tuition was covered after her father's traumatic brain injury left him unable to work. A widow in San Diego whose mortgage was paid off quietly after her husband took his own life. A family in rural Kentucky who received a wheelchair-accessible van when their local VA said there was a 2-year wait list. Over 100 families. 22 years. No press releases. No galas. No named buildings. She never wanted recognition, Robert said. She used to say something, "Care doesn't need a witness, it just needs to show up." That line hit me so hard I had to look away. I left the house 2 hours later carrying a folder of documents and a weight I wasn't prepared for. I sat in the rental car and called Vivian. She answered on the first ring. "What did the lawyer say?" "I'm not with the lawyer," I said. "Then where are you?" I hesitated. "Maryland." Silence. "Why?" "Mom left something," I said. "Something bigger than we knew." "How big?" I looked at the folder on the passenger seat. "Big. How much?" There it was. The same question, the same tone. Not what did she build, not who did she help. "How much?" "I need more time to understand it," I said. "Don't do this," Vivian said. "Don't shut me out." "I'm not shutting you out. I'm trying to understand what I'm looking at." "Is it money?" "Yes." "How much?" $14 million. The silence lasted so long I thought the call had dropped. "And she let me borrow $3,000 for my car like it was a sacrifice," Vivian said. Her voice had changed. It wasn't grief. It was calculation. When I got back to Savannah, Vivian was already at Mom's house. She hadn't knocked, she had used her spare key and let herself in. She was sitting at the kitchen table with a yellow legal pad covered in notes. "You went to Maryland without telling me," she said. "I needed to see it first." "See what? Our mother's secret life?" She stood up. $14 million, Helen. And she lived like she was broke. She wasn't broke. She was deliberate. She was hiding it. She was protecting it. Vivian crossed her arms. "From who?" "From exactly this conversation." That landed harder than I intended. Vivian flinched. We stood on opposite sides of the kitchen table where Mom used to do her crossword puzzles every Sunday afternoon. "I'm the older sister," Vivian said. "I should have been told." "She told no one. And now you control it?" "I'm the successor trustee." "That's what her documents say. That's convenient." I didn't respond to that. Vivian sat down slowly. "She helped me," she said. "When Marcus left, when I couldn't make rent, she helped me. I know. But it always felt like she was measuring it. Like she was deciding how much I deserved. Maybe she was deciding how much would help versus how much would hurt." Vivian's eyes went sharp. "Don't psychoanalyze me. I'm not. I'm telling you what she wrote. She wrote something?" I pulled out the letter I had found inside the lockbox. Mom's handwriting small, precise, no wasted space. I hadn't shown it to Claire and Robert. It was personal. I read the part that mattered out loud. "If you're reading this, I didn't find the right time to explain. I didn't keep this from you because I doubted you. I kept it because money changes the shape of love, and I needed love to stay the shape it was." Vivian's face didn't move, but her eyes filled. "She could have just told us," she whispered. She was afraid of what it would become. "It's becoming something right now," Vivian said. She was right. That night, after Vivian left, I sat in Mom's rocking chair on the back porch. The garden was already starting to wilt without her. Tomatoes drooping, basil going to seed. She had tended it every day like it was a patient. I realized she had tended everything that way, quietly, consistently, without expecting anyone to notice. I thought about the families in that binder. The daughter who got to go to college, the widow who kept her home. 100 small rescues, none of them loud, all of them real. Vivian called a lawyer within the week. Not Mr. Bowen, someone in Charlotte who specialized in estate disputes. The letter arrived 10 days later. Formal request for full disclosure of the trust. Allegations of undue influence. Claims that Mom's assets had been improperly shielded from the estate. Legal language has a way of turning your mother into a case number. I hired an attorney in Savannah named Patricia Voss. Former JAG, silver-haired, spoke in complete sentences that sounded like they had been edited twice. She reviewed everything. "Your mother was meticulous," she said. "This trust is airtight. My sister won't see it that way. Family rarely does." The first hearing was in Chatham County. Small courtroom, fluorescent lights, a judge who looked like he had seen 1,000 versions of this exact fight. Vivian sat across the room. She looked tired, not angry, tired. Her attorney argued that the trust had been structured to deprive rightful heirs of their inheritance, that Mom had hidden assets, that the trustee designation was the product of favoritism, not fairness. Patricia responded calmly. The trust was established 22 years before the decedent's death. It was legally documented, consistently maintained, and its existence was referenced in the will. There is no evidence of coercion or concealment. The judge requested additional records and scheduled a second hearing. Outside the courtroom, Vivian caught my arm. "You could end this," she said. "You could split it and we both walk away. It's not mine to split. It's $14 million sitting in a trust that pays for strangers while your own sister can't make rent." "Those strangers are families of people who served," I said. "So was she," Vivian shot back. "And she chose this." That shut me up for a moment. Because she was right. Mom had chosen this. She had chosen these families over the ease of telling her own daughters the truth. The second hearing brought documentation from Claire and Robert. 22 years of records. Disbursement histories. Thank you letters from families anonymized, but detailed enough to show the scope of what my mother had built. The judge reviewed them without expression. On the third hearing, something shifted. Patricia called a witness I hadn't expected, a retired Navy captain named Donald Perry, who had served with my mother at Bethesda Naval Hospital in the 90s. He was 71, walked with a slight limp, and spoke the way men speak when they have nothing left to prove. "Lieutenant Commander Margaret Calloway was the most disciplined person I ever served with," he said. "She saw what happened to families after the cameras left. She decided to do something about it. Not with speeches. With money she earned and saved and invested for 2 decades. Vivian's attorney asked if he had influenced my mother's decision to create the trust. Captain Perry almost smiled. "No one influenced Margaret," he said. "She influenced rooms. The judge's ruling was measured. The trust is valid. It predates any claim. The petitioner's challenge is dismissed. No dramatic moment, just a sentence and a gavel." Outside the courthouse, Vivian didn't speak to me at first. She stood by her car in the parking lot, keys in her hand, looking at the ground. "She really built all that," she said quietly. "Yes, and she never told us." "No." "Do you think she was proud of it?" "I think she was private about it." Vivian looked up. "I wanted her to be proud of me." "She was." "You don't know that." "I do," I said. "Because she helped you every time you asked. She just didn't make it loud." Vivian drove back to Charlotte that afternoon. We didn't speak for 3 weeks. I continued working with Claire and Robert to process the next round of disbursements. A family in Ohio needed help with medical equipment. A veteran's daughter in Georgia had been accepted to nursing school but couldn't afford tuition. Life kept moving the way it does, forward, steady, indifferent to family arguments. But one line from Mom's letter kept circling back to me. "Money changes the shape of love." She had watched it happen. Maybe with her own parents, maybe with friends. She had seen money distort relationships, turn siblings into opponents, turn grief into negotiations. She had decided, decades before her death, that she would not let that happen to what she was building. But it had happened anyway, just not to the trust. To us. I drove to Charlotte on a Thursday. Vivian's apartment was on the 2nd floor of a complex that looked like it had been renovated once and then forgotten. Her car was in the lot. Laundry was drying on the balcony railing. She opened the door and looked at me like she had been waiting. "I figured you'd come," she said. "Can I come in?" She stepped aside. The apartment was small but clean, bills on the counter, organized in a way that reminded me of Mom. I sat at her kitchen table. "I'm not dissolving the trust," I said. "I know, but Mom built in a provision." Vivian tilted her head. "What kind of provision?" "A family stabilization clause. Structured support for direct family members. Financial counseling. Debt management. Controlled distributions tied to accountability. You want to manage my money. I want to protect what Mom built. And I want to help you without destroying either of us in the process." Vivian stared at me. "You sound like her." I'm starting to understand why she sounded that way. We sat there for a while. She made coffee. It was too strong, the way Mom used to make it. "She helped 100 families," Vivian said. "I know. And I sued you over it. You were hurt. I was greedy. You were both, she gave a short laugh. Honest. Mom raised me that way. Vivian set down her mug. What would she want me to do? She'd want you to accept help without feeling small about it. Vivian's eyes glistened. I always felt like I was failing compared to you. You weren't compared to me. You were compared to yourself. That's worse. We spent the rest of the afternoon going through numbers. What she owed. What it would take to stabilize over 3 years instead of 1. It wasn't dramatic. It was math. Discipline. The kind of thing Mom would have approved of. When I stood to leave, Vivian walked me to the door. She really drove that Honda until it died, didn't she? She said. She drove it until it begged for mercy, I said. Vivian smiled. A real one. I thought she was stubborn. She was. But that's not all she was. No, I said. That's not all she was. A year later, we stood together at Mom's grave in Savannah. The live oaks had new growth. The headstone was simple, her name, her rank, and her dates. No extra inscription. She wouldn't have wanted one. Vivian had completed her first year of financial counseling. She had paid off 2 credit cards, closed a store account she didn't need, and started a savings account for the first time in a decade. She wasn't perfect. She was steady. The trust continued exactly as Mom designed it. Quarterly disbursements went out. A veteran in Texas got the surgery he had been waiting for. A widow in Virginia kept her home. 2 more children of former service members started college that fall. No press releases, no foundation dinners, just care. Showing up. Vivian knelt beside the headstone and touched the marble. I used to think she was holding out on us, she said. She was holding something, I replied. Just not what we thought. Vivian nodded slowly. Do you ever wish you'd just split it? No. She looked at me. Even when I sued you? Especially then. We stayed a while longer. The wind moved through the oaks the way it had on the day of the funeral. Some things don't change. They don't need to. On the drive back, I thought about the moment in Annapolis when Robert told me the number. 14 million. I thought about how my pulse had quickened, how for a split second the money had felt like the point, but it wasn't. The point was a woman who woke up every morning at 5:30, watered her garden, drove her old Honda to work, came home smelling like antiseptic, and quietly redirected every spare dollar toward people she had promised to help. The point was a woman who understood that care doesn't need a witness, it just needs to show up. Mom never put medals on the wall. She never told her war stories. She never explained why she lived the way she did. But she didn't leave quietly. She left instructions, and she trusted me to follow them. If this story made you think about someone in your own life, someone who gave more than they showed, someone who lived small so others could stand tall, take a moment today. Call them if you can. Forgive them if you need to. Learn from them while there's still time. And if you believe that strength doesn't have to be loud to matter, I hope you'll stay with this channel. Tell me in the comments what showing up has looked like in your life. Because sometimes the greatest legacy isn't what someone leaves you. It's what they quietly gave to everyone else.